Katie Honan of the city and J.C. Polanco join me now to chew the fat about scandal and the world of politics. Oh my God, scandal in the world of politics. What a concept. A very busy week, Katie, in the world of scandal at City Hall. Let's start with the mayor and charges of sexual assault made by somebody he worked with 30 years ago.
Yeah, so this was initially filed to get into the deadline of the Adult Survivors Act around Thanksgiving. It was filed, but there was no complaint attached to it. That complaint came out this week, and the plaintiff alleges that she worked for the NYPD. She wanted to get ahead. She felt she was being overlooked for promotion, so she was recommended to speak to Eric Adams, who at the time was a very outspoken police officer, especially about the treatment of black men and women in the police department. She alleges that she went on a ride with him. He said he was going to drive her back to Coney Island. They go the opposite way, and he asked her for oral sex. He asked her for other sexual things. The mayor denies it. He says he's not sure if he's ever even met this woman. But this, I think, and it's what you asked him on Tuesday, how this will proceed and how the mayor can kind of navigate this as we're going through this process of figuring out what more can come out in terms of her accusations.
Well, here's the question, JC. So you have a mayor now who's accused of being involved in a sexual assault case by a woman who is asking for a jury trial. There's no witnesses. It's he said, she said. Is that a slippery slope? What if it happens while he's trying to run for re-election?
Well, I'm an attorney, so it's very important that I'm careful here. She's entitled to her day in court. She's entitled to be heard. The law allows her and gives her the protections to make these allegations 30 years later and demand a jury trial. But the mayor is also entitled to a presumption of innocence, although not a criminal case, a civil case. He is entitled to an opportunity to defend himself against these allegations. He's the mayor of New York City, the most important city on the planet, in my opinion, and he has the toughest job on earth, probably next to the president. So he's under a microscope, and unlike anyone else, we are speaking about him now. There's other scandals surrounding him because of people that he's appointed and entrusted. So it's not a good look, as my students would say. It's not a good look, right? This is not a good situation to be in. And if you have a jury trial when you're already battling for some positive news and you're going into an election year, none of this works out. None of this is good. So it's very important that the mayor come out and say publicly, I don't know this person. I've never done this. Be forceful about it. Don't finagle what's going on here. Just say, I had nothing to do with this.
But he did say that, but he still, if it goes to a jury trial, think about the optics. He has to say it never happened. She's going to have all kinds of explicit details which were hard to talk about on TV.
Yeah.
The thing is this. She is a black woman. He's looking for the black vote. How does he try to impugn her credibility during an election campaign when he's trying to convince people to vote for him? Is that a very difficult thing in a court of law, given the political ramifications?
Marcia, New York City voters are very smart. They understand that people have a presumption of innocence and they have a right to defend themselves in court. He's going to also be able to defend himself. And I think New Yorkers are going to understand that there's a legal process involved and he should be heard. And I think that, quite frankly, there's going to be nonstop negative news coming out of this case. And unfortunately for the mayor, it doesn't look good. But I think New York City voters are smart enough to be able to say the man is defending himself, he's going to have his day in court, and we're going to have to separate his record from what's happening in this courtroom at the time.
So the question is not only the sex assault charges that the mayor faces, but these other investigations that are swirling around. The Southern District, which is investigating possibly illegal campaign contributions from Turkish officials, and the Eastern District, which the city has reported extensively about, involving Winnie Greco, people in the Chinese community, and a whole realm of possibilities, whether there were also straw donors involving people from the Chinese community. So is the swirl of things around the mayor going to make it more difficult to get elected, and will it encourage other people to get into the race?
Yeah, I think all of these investigations, all the news reporting on it, obviously we're going to report on this. What happened with Winnie Greco, as my outlet reported, my colleagues and I reported, that she was allegedly, asking people for thousands of dollars. Come to Gracie Mansion, give me $10,000. Raising money for this archway she wanted to build in Brooklyn, a project that began when Mayor Adams was Brooklyn Borough President. Her home was raided by the FBI. She had a medical episode during that. She's still, as far as we can tell, on medical leave. these are the people who the mayor, at least in the case of Winnie, she's been with him since 2014. She's been involved with him for years, and this is someone who's very close to him, been referred to like a sister to him and to Ingrid Lewis-Martin, his top aide and advisor. So I think any opponent will seize on this as an opportunity.
See, that's really the question. With all of the, look, the mayor has not been charged in any of this stuff, although we do point out that in the Manhattan investigation, they did take his cell phones and his electronic devices. But there's no charges. But the question of all these things swirling around him, does that encourage opponents to take him on? And what's the level of his vulnerability?
I think of course, I mean, if I'm a progressive Democrat, right, and I'm watching this mayor with all the scandal around him, even if he's not charged, I would take an opportunity to primary him. You just had Scott Stringer here, Marcia, Kramer, and he's one of the guys that is leading the charge to oppose this mayor. Now, think about this. You have ranked choice voting, which makes the mayor a target because you can have a coalition of people get together and say, if you don't like him, vote for me, and you can run as a tag team to tag up against the mayor. And in a primary with all the scandal around him, he may be in trouble, especially when he's the centrist Democrat, when he's tough on crime, when he speaks tough on the issue on the immigration crisis. You have a lot of utopian and super progressive Democrats here who see him as not one of their own and may want to line up behind someone that they can relate to. So it's important that the mayor comes out hard and be very vocal, because this is the issue. Yes, progressives can come after him in a ranked choice voting and do some damage, but he can carve himself as the centrist, moderate, Swazi-like Democrat.
That's how he won the last time.
That's right, but he didn't have all of this news. No one was talking about sexual assault, civil claims against him, and Winnie, and all these other things going on, all which hurt him. So it's important that he comes out and say, I have nothing to do with this. This is all noise.
But can progressives actually coalesce around one or two people as opposed to 82 people who want to take them on?
That's the question. And I think and going back to the mayor's base, right? Even older voters, predominantly black voters, when he goes to these town halls in communities that are predominantly communities of color, senior town halls, he has a very strong message of, I'm innocent. This is an attack on me.
And they believe him.
Yeah, so that's what matters. I think he's smart about what he says, who he says it to, and trying to embolden that base around him so that they view this as an attack, not just on him, but on their community. And we'll see. I mean, we'll see what happens. We've had a lot of FBI raids. But nothing really has stuck as of yet. So we'll see what happens from there.
But still, I wonder how many people are now saying, I'm going to have an exploratory committee.
Well, I think that progressives are smart. I think they know that you have Antonio Reynoso in Brooklyn, who is a very progressive, Dominican, young, vibrant candidate for the mayoralty one day. I don't know if it's now, but one day for sure. And then you have Scott Stringer. So if you're a progressive Democrat, you have your candidates. There's no reason why it wouldn't be one of those two guys that you focus on.
Yeah, but there's all these other people, state senators, you know, that are looking at the race as well. From Brooklyn, from Queens, from all over, they're looking at the possibility of a race.
You could look at it, but New York City is a different monster. Look, I ran citywide once. It is a monster of a place to run in. So the idea that a state senator is going to throw their hat in the race against the mayor of New York City, that's tough. That's a tough sell. I think you have a better shot coming in as a former citywide official like Scott Stringer or a borough president like Antonio Reynoso.
Well, we're going to have to leave it right there for now, but our conversation continues right after the show on our streaming channel, CBS News New York.